Amano is a lonely loser in real life, but his game stats are off the charts, and everybody treated him like street dog, because he cares more about his joystick than his actual life. But then, one day the school's most hottest girl secretly falls for him, and she starts doing everything he wants, and I mean guys, everything. Everything kicks off when this hot popular girl named Tendu randomly walks up to him in a gaming shop and says something. His brain basically crashes, because he never imagined the cute girl in school would ever notice someone as invisible as him. He instantly starts fumbling his words, like how you panic around your crush, and ends up embarrassing himself non-stop. He really wants to vanish into thin air, trying not to seem weird. He scrambles to explain himself, but to his surprise, she says she gets it and even calls him amazing. Then, out of nowhere, she asks if he wants to join the game club, leaving him completely speechless. While all that's happening, over at a nearby arcade, a Gyuri who acts like a pink-loving princess begs her boyfriend a lollipop. Sorry guys, I mean. She begs her boyfriend Tasuku to help her win a stuffed animal from a claw machine. Tasuku handles it like a pro and snags the toy in seconds, which sends Aguri into full-on fangirl mode. Feeling cool about himself, Tasuku starts thinking he's living the dream, dating a super cute girl who, honestly, isn't the sharpest tool in the shed. Later that evening, while heading home, Tasuku spots someone who looks kind of familiar. It's Amano, just standing around looking all lost like a guy who breaks his joystick. Tasuku stares for a second, thinking, wait, isn't that the quiet dude from school who's obsessed with video games? But then he laughs it off, thinking there's no way someone like Amano could ever be hanging out with a cute girl. Turns out, Amano was actually talking with Tendu. She was telling him all about the gaming club she brought back from the dead. She starts wondering out loud why everyone from her classmates to the teacher treats her so kindly. She even brings up how someone once stayed awake for 3 whole days to break a speedrun record. Amano doesn't believe her and jokes that she must have been bugging or something. Tendu insists it's true and says she hasn't told anyone else this, but she transferred schools just because of the club. Even though it was shut down, she revived it and is now looking for actual gaming geeks to join. She finally asks Amano if he's down to be part of it. But before he can say anything, Tendu gets a call from her mom and rushes off, saying she'll see him at school tomorrow. Later that night, while Amano's chilling and gaming as usual, he suddenly remembers Tendu's invite and starts feeling hyped that something this wild is happening to him. While playing, he notices a weird pop-up on his phone. An unknown player named Mano has sent him a help request. Not thinking much, he taps on it. The next morning at school, Amano's super nervous about bumping into Tendu again. Trying to take his mind off it, he grabs his phone, and boom, there's that same request from Mano. Just as he's about to click it again, Tendu appears out of nowhere, all friendly and energetic. Amano starts blushing hard when he notices some of his classmates staring. Feeling awkward, he quickly tells Tendu they should get going to the club room. As they walk off, Tasuku stands frozen, jaw dropped, shocked that someone like Tendu is actually talking to the guy most people see as a total background character. On the way there, Tendu introduces Amano to another new member, Misumi. As they reach the club room, Amano mentions how wild it is that the school actually allows a gaming club. Tendu laughs and says people don't realize how active the club really is. Inside, she shows them around and introduces the rest of the crew, Case and Nina. Amano's jaw drops when he sees Case playing a super intense game called COD. Misumi, being a total noob, has no clue what that is. She's only ever played Subway Surfers. Tendu then explains that all the gear in the room was bought using prize money from past competitions. Both Amano and Misumi are shocked. She tells them to grab a controller and join in. The squad ends up gaming non-stop for 2 straight hours, and by the end, Amano feels like his brain's about to melt. While all that's going on, Call of Duty turns to Misumi, totally surprised by how well he's playing. He's like, there's no way this is your first time touching this kind of game. But Misumi casually says, yeah, this is literally my first time. Hearing that, Call of Duty gives him props and says he might actually have what it takes to be a pro someday. Then he looks at Amano and roasts him, asking what in the world he's even doing. That hit Amano right in the feels. The group decides to take a break, but Call of Duty and Nina just keep grinding like machines. Amano stares at them thinking, these two must be powered by energy drinks or something stronger. Tendu suddenly breaks the silence and asks how everyone got into gaming. She starts off by saying that Call of Duty's skills came from being trained hard by his dad, who was apparently some military dude. That's why he's so cracked at COD. Then she shares Nina's backstory too. When it's Amano's turn, he awkwardly says he doesn't have any cool reason, he just kind of plays. Misumi agrees and says the same, which makes Amano feel relieved for a second, until Misumi totally switches up and blurts out a made-up reason, betraying him on the spot. Tendu then asks if they've learned enough about the club now. She says they don't need to be amazing at games to join, it's all about improving and having fun. She finally pops the big question, will they join? Call of Duty even offers to help Amano learn the basics. Amano lights up, feeling like he's finally getting real gamer friends and living the school life he always dreamed of. But just as everyone expects a yes, he awkwardly says no, claiming the club doesn't really have the kind of games he's into. Not long after turning down the invite, Amano starts kicking himself for saying no. He can't even figure out why he did it in the first place. While he's stuck overthinking, that same request from Mono pops up on his phone again. Just as he's about to click it, Tendu suddenly shows up out of nowhere, right in front of everyone, and straight up asks him again to join the club. The entire class watches in shock as Tendu reaches out her hand, hoping for a handshake, but instead of grabbing it, Amano taps on Mono's request on his screen, completely ignoring her. She asks if it's because he feels like he's not good enough to join. Amano quietly says yes. He explains that he doesn't want to compete or go pro, just wants to enjoy playing games his own way. He tells her he's sorry and that the club sounds awesome, but it's just not what he's looking for. Tendu stands there, crushed. This is the first time anyone's ever told her no, and it hits her hard. Her eyes well up, and she turns away in frustration, clearly upset. As she storms off, she slips on a banana peelies, seriously, and crashes to the floor right in front of everyone. The whole class gasps, and the embarrassment triples for her. Everyone stares in awkward silence, and soon the classmates start whispering. They're confused, annoyed, and start blaming Amano, thinking he's just some weird loner nobody really gets. In the next class, Tasuku can't stop glancing at Amano, still stuck on what the heck is going on with this guy. He's acting all confused, like Amano is some mystery he just can't crack. Later during lunch, Aguri is chatting with Tasuku and a few of his friends. She casually drops the gossip bomb. Everyone in her class is talking non-stop about the whole Amano and Tendu situation. Tasuku's shocked, but his friends are even more surprised that he's only now hearing about it. One of them even asks, wait, are you and Aguri even a real couple? Since the two don't exactly act lovey-dovey. Tasuku freezes for a second. That question hits harder than expected. He flashes back to the time Aguri gave him a love letter, and he only accepted it because he was feeling lonely and had no reason to say no. Meanwhile, Aguri, who's completely clueless she's just filling time in his life, tells herself she's fine with it as long as she gets to be near him. After school, the group heads to the arcade. Tasuku splits off and starts playing solo, but while gaming, he suddenly starts remembering the times he was made fun of as a kid. It messes with his head, and he wonders how long these memories will keep haunting him. Just then, he spots Amano watching him play. Amano walks over, all awkward and weird, and randomly asks if Tasuku likes games. Tasuku says he's never really thought about it that deeply. Amano then shows him a game, and starts talking about it with so much energy, it sounds like he's trying to sell it on TV. He suggests Tasuku try it, but Tasuku brushes him off and says he didn't ask for recommendations. Amano looks embarrassed, apologizes, and walks away. But a few minutes later, Tasuku notices him walking around like he's trying to rob the place, clueless and lost. Surprised that a so-called gaming geek doesn't even know how arcades work, Tasuku finally walks over and tells him, "Come on, I'll show you around." Tasuku finally gets annoyed and tells Amano to shut it, asking if he wants to actually play or just keep rambling. Amano immediately lights up and says yes, totally thrilled. They rush to the next machine. And on the way, Amano keeps chattering about how he's never really played much at arcades. He usually just watches demo screens and leaves because he never had anyone to play with. Tasuku is low-key shocked. He's thinking, this is the same clueless guy who rejected Tendu. It just doesn't add up. Curious, he straight up asks Amano what's really going on between him and Tendu. Amano explains everything, how she invited him, how he turned her down, and why. Tasuku then asks, okay, so what's the big difference between the games you like and the ones at the club? But Amano doesn't really have a solid answer. Meanwhile, Aguri is wondering where her boyfriend disappeared to. As she looks around the arcade, she notices a blonde girl hanging out nearby, acting kind of sus. Back to the boys, Tasuku and Amano start gaming together. Even though Tasuku's totally new to the game, he ends up crushing Amano. But instead of getting mad, Amano just laughs and looks genuinely happy. Tasuku's confused. Why is this guy so cheerful over losing in a basic fighting game? After beating Amano again, Tasuku starts to feel a little bad for dunking on such a noob. Still, they try out other games, and later, while taking a short break, Amano seems completely in his zone, just enjoying everything. Tasuku then asks if he's using this chance to finally play the games he never could before. Amano turns red, clearly embarrassed, and dashes back to the machines to avoid answering. As Tasuku follows behind, he suddenly spots Tendu nearby and wonders what on earth she's doing here. While wandering around, Amano suddenly spots Tasuku's friend group walking into the Arcadian without thinking. He bolts out of there, quickly wishing Tasuku a good day as he leaves. Tasuku's left standing there, super confused like, what just happened? Realizing Amano ran off for real, Tasuku dashes after him. He finally catches up and demands to know why he ran away like that. Amano awkwardly denies it, pretending like nothing happened. Then he looks down and says, "Why would a guy like you even hang out with someone like me? You actually have a life." Tasuku snaps. He grabs Amano by the collar and glares at him, saying, "Don't ever talk like that again." He tells Amano he used to be a total nerd too, and the only reason he's different now is because he worked hard to change himself. He says playing for fun is a dumb excuse, and if that's his mindset, maybe he should just stop playing altogether. Then, to push it further, he calls Tendu's game trash. That's when Amano loses it. He grabs Tasuku and seriously threatens to toss him off the bridge right there. He tells him, "You can call me whatever you want, but don't you dare disrespect someone you barely even know." Amano defends Tendu, saying she was the only one who ever saw something in a nobody like him, and she didn't deserve that insult. He demands Tasuku take it back. Tasuku panics and begs him not to do anything crazy. Amano suddenly realizes things are about to go too far and backs off, saying sorry and letting him go. He jokes to himself that jail time isn't worth it. Tasuku, now thinking clearly, remembers the day he boxed up all his old games and tried to change. He admits to himself he was wrong for comparing Amano to who he used to be. He apologizes sincerely, shocked that the same guy who rejected Tendu's invite is now standing up for her more than anyone else. After cooling off, Amano and Tasuku finally settle their beef and go their separate ways. A little later, Tasuku spots Tendu staring at Amano from a distance, totally zoned out and drooling like a love-struck anime character. He's honestly stunned. He can't believe the school's queen is crushing this hard on a guy like Amano. He casually mentions it to her, and Tendu instantly gets flustered, her face turning bright red. As Tasuku walks off, he gets an idea he's gonna keep nudging these two together, mostly because it'll be hilarious to mess with Amano. He returns to Aguri, and right away she begs him to win her another plushie from the claw machine. Tasuku refuses, saying he already blew a bunch of money playing arcade games with another dude. But when she keeps pouting and throwing attitude, he gives in and agrees to play one round for her. As he plays, Tasuku starts thinking about their relationship. They've been dating for 6 months, yet everything still feels kind of bland. He wonders why they're even together and randomly asks her what made her fall for him in the first place. Expecting something like your face or your style, he's stunned when Aguri tells him she's liked him since their old school, the day he won a plushie for her. He remembers that day well. He was broke, depressed, and only went to the arcade to escape reality for a bit. Feeling awkward, Tasuku runs off like he just got hit by Cupid's arrow. For some reason, Aguri now seems way cuter than before. The next morning, Tasuku walks into class like he just slayed the Ender Dragon in Minecraft. He goes straight to Amano and tells him he actually had fun yesterday, leaving Amano super confused. Tasuku then asks him to recommend another great game soon. His friends overhear the convo and ask when these two became buddies and why Tasuku looks so cheerful. Grinning wide, Tasuku proudly says, "I'm in full gamer mode now." A few days later, Tasuku walks up to Amano, clearly annoyed, and says, "That game you told me to try." Total snooze fest. But instead of getting defensive, Amano gets super excited that Tasuku even gave it a shot in the first place. Tasuku explains that, sure, the beginning was cool and the gameplay had some good moments, but the ending completely tanked. It was so bad, he actually regretted finishing it. Amano, feeling kind of bad, nods and says he agrees most of the games from that studio are kind of trash in the end, but for some weird reason, they still pull you in. Tasuku squints at him, totally lost. What are you even talking about? Amano then tries to explain. It's like falling in love, it doesn't always make sense, but you still get hooked. Tasuku bursts out laughing and says, "Bro, you're a single loser who's never even had a girlfriend, and you're seriously trying to give me a love analogy." He smirks and adds, "I've got a master's degree in romance plots, and you're out here talking nonsense." Right after joking around, Tasuku suddenly switches his tone and asks Amano what's really going on between him and Tendu. Amano is confused and says he has no clue what Tasuku is talking about. Tasuku then points out that Tendu has been low-key stalking him ever since he turned her down. Amano just shrugs and says, "I mean, I kinda see her sometimes out of the corner of my eye, maybe." Tasuku's stunned that they aren't even hanging out or talking. He tells Amano they better be careful. If they keep ignoring each other like this, they might drift apart for good. Just then, Amano gets a notification and asks if it's cool to play his game for a bit. While watching him, Tasuku notices his username Suchi and asks what kind of name that even is. Amano explains that he doesn't like using his real name online, so he used a short version of his mom's maiden name instead. Tasuku groans and says, "Wow, I was expecting a cool story, not whatever that mess was." Then he asks about the player named Mono. Amano lights up and says he's been playing with Mono since he started the game. He says it's kinda special feeling connected to someone you've never even met. Tasuku sighs and thinks this dude still has a long way to go. He jokes that Amano might need some social rehab before he can even enjoy his own rom-com with Tendu. Amano instantly feels like trash for comparing himself to someone like her, but Tasuku tells him he wants to help him get out of loner mode. Then, with zero chill, he grabs Amano and says the first step is talking to a hot gamer girl who's actually into the same stuff as him. After school, Tasuku drags Amano over to the classroom next door. He points inside and says, "See her? That's Chiaki. She's just like you, introverted, awkward, and totally into games. Go talk to her." Amano freaks out and says no way, but Tasuku won't back off and literally tries to shove him into the room. Right then, Aguri shows up and calls out to Tasuku, asking if they're not hanging out today. That forces him to stop the whole matchmaking mission, but before leaving, he tells Amano, "You have to talk to her. Don't chicken out." Left alone at the doorway, Amano just stands there nervously, unsure of what to do. While he's still thinking about whether to go in, some random classmate walks by and jokingly says, "Here to see Tendu again." Amano immediately shuts it down and replies, "Nope, not here for her. I came to talk to someone else." That single sentence hits Tendu hard, so hard, in fact, that she basically turns to emotional dust in her seat, crushed by what she just heard. Amano walks over to Chiaki's desk, trying to start a conversation, but before he can say much, Tendu walks up with a smile, asking what he's doing in her classroom. Amano casually says he came to meet a girl. Assuming it's about something official, Tendu asks if it's club-related. But Amano shakes his head and says, "Nope, just wanted to make friends with the girl next to me." That one line nearly breaks Tendu, and as she runs off calling him a jerk, Amano quickly grabs her arm though she still storms out. Turning back to Chiaki, Amano tries again, but Chiaki shrinks into her seat, super confused about who this guy even is. He points out the game she's currently playing, catching her off guard. Later, they bump into each other outside and start chatting, though the conversation is painfully dull at first. Then Chiaki suddenly asks if he's from the game club. Amano quickly says no, explaining that while he was invited, he didn't join. Chiaki admits she also turned down the offer. Realizing they share the same reason for not joining, wanting to enjoy games on their own terms, they start bonding. It looks like the beginning of a solid friendship, until the two get into a heated debate over their favorite types of games. Tasuku steps in to cool things down, but not long after, another silly argument kicks off. Amano explains it's impossible to compromise since they're just two stubborn gamers with giant egos and no social lives. Suddenly, Amano notices Aguri at the doorway, giving off intense vibes as she watches them. Tasuku, completely forgetting he was supposed to meet his girlfriend, casually compliments Chiaki's appearance. He says her hair looks good but would be even cuter if she cut it shorter, trying to flirt without realizing it. Amano starts sweating as he notices Aguri giving off an intense vibe, realizing that Tasuku might be walking straight into trouble. What he doesn't know, though, is that Misumi and Tendu are nearby, secretly watching everything unfold. Tendu, especially, is losing her mind, stressed out about what's going on between Amano and Chiaki. That evening, on the way home, Tasuku notices Aguri acting strangely quiet. Something definitely feels off. Out of nowhere, she asks what he was doing in that other classroom earlier. Tasuku casually replies, just settling an argument between two drama queens. Then she brings up Amano, asking why he's suddenly been spending so much time with him. Tasuku explains that it's nothing serious, they just talk about games, but the answer doesn't ease Aguri's mood one bit. The next day, the whole school is buzzing about a new cute girl that has everyone's attention. Tasuku hears all the talk and is totally confused. Then Amano walks up to him and asks if Aguri seemed off the day before. Tasuku says she looked fine but wonders why Amano's even asking. Suddenly, Chiaki calls out to them. They turn around and are completely stunned. She looks stunning, like a completely different person. They nearly choke on air before realizing she's the same girl who used to rock a hairstyle that looked like seaweed. Tasuku is blown away, shocked that a small suggestion from him actually turned her into a total cutie. He compliments her and says she looks great. But then, Amano senses something's wrong and turns around, only to see Aguri running away, visibly upset. Without hesitation, he dashes after her. While searching, he runs into Tendu, who nervously starts apologizing for everything. But Amano isn't paying attention. He cuts her off and urgently asks if she's seen a girl with a great figure run by. She points the way, and Amano thanks her and gets ready to continue his chase. Right before he takes off, Tendu softly asks why he's chasing her. Amano, without thinking, replies, "It's a relationship mess," giving her second-time emotional damage. Amano finally catches up with Aguri and, trying his best not to look awkward, gently invites her to join him for tea at a nearby cafe. Sitting down, he tries to explain that whatever she thinks is going on between Tasuku and Chiaki, it's really not like that at all. Aguri's mood lifts immediately, smiling brightly. She happily agrees and offers to grab another drink for them both. But when she returns, she sees something that completely shatters her expectation. Meanwhile, somewhere else, Tendu reflects on her usual morning schedule. Her day starts at 5:30 sharp. She gets up early and heads out for a jog, something she considers a time for self-improvement. After running, she takes a bath, then moves on to study quietly before breakfast. Once she eats, she gets ready for school without much thought to her appearance. For her, what matters most is developing herself from within, not just looking good. When she reaches school, the first thing she does is catch up with her friends. During breaks, she helps out teachers not because she's chasing bonus points, but because she truly enjoys the learning that comes from it. But then comes the daily low point when random guys, often the least appealing ones, confess their feelings to her. She always turns them down politely, though it's emotionally draining. Later in the day, she heads to the game club, where she secretly sharpens her skills. While most people don't know she's a member, this is the one place she can just focus on improving without judgment. After returning home, her routine continues: more studying, a bit more gaming, and then she goes to bed early, preparing to repeat the same structured life all over again the next day. But lately, ever since she caught feelings for Amano, Tendu's routine has totally fallen apart. She still wakes up at 5:30, but now it's from some cringy dream about him. She rolls around her bed, blushing like crazy, then knocks out again. When she finally wakes up at 7, she rushes through unfinished homework, shoves down her breakfast, and scrambles to get ready. She's suddenly more obsessed with how she looks and dashes off to school barely prepared. At school, she's no longer social with her friends and ducks behind walls anytime she spots Amano, too shy to face him but secretly want to play with joystick. During breaks, Tendu now skips hanging out with her friends completely. Even when she helps the teachers like usual, she chooses the longest route on purpose, just to maybe catch a glimpse of Amano on the way. The worst part? She turns bright red whenever one of the guys she normally rejects asks if there's someone she likes. After school at the game club, she starts zoning out during matches. Misumi notices and tells her she seems totally distracted lately. She awkwardly admits her mind's been drifting toward other things, aka Amano. Call of Duty doesn't hold back and bluntly says she's not playing like she used to. She's slipping. They remind her that she's the president of the club and has a responsibility to keep her game sharp. Embarrassed, Tendu agrees to get herself back on track. But later that night, while lying in bed, her thoughts go straight back to Amano. She finds herself hoping he'll drop by the club tomorrow. She ends up daydreaming about it until 2 a.m. The next day at the club, while playing with Misumi, he suddenly asks if she's heard anything about Amano and Chiaki. Instantly, Tendu goes from anime to manga mata frozen and Palian loses the game miserably. Later, she reflects on why she's been underperforming. She realizes her gameplay has changed because of something. Amano said that games should be about fun. As she walks out, flustered by just thinking about him, she starts walking faster, trying to clear her head. Suddenly, she's stopped by the very person she's running from, Amano. Trying her best to stay cool, she casually asks if he's out shopping. Amano explains, his mom got mad at him for gaming all day and told him to go outside for once. Tendu teases him, saying he's better off walking with her than wandering like a lost pig. Amano shyly declines, saying a pretty girl like her shouldn't be seen with someone like him. Not this time. Tendu moves closer and softly asks if he hates her. Amano says no, which instantly makes her blush. He adds that he doesn't want more gossip to start and tries to walk away, but she grabs his sleeve and gently says she's only asking for a walk, not a date. Then, without another word, she starts walking ahead and tells him to follow. Not where the place, what you think, guys? As they walk toward the arcade, Amano glances at Tendu and says he never expected her to be the type who visits places like this. She casually replies that she stops by whenever the game club doesn't meet. She then asks if he's been coming here often. Amano says he used to think arcades weren't his thing until someone dragged him along recently, and he ended up liking it. Hearing that, Tendu's heart sinks. Her brain instantly assumes he means Chiaki, but she forces herself to believe it must have been Tasuku. As they head inside, Amano pauses at a crane game and asks if she enjoys those too. Tendu imagines him and Chiaki playing this exact machine together, laughing, maybe even sharing a kiss, then starts bonking her head lightly on the cabinet out of sheer jealousy. Trying to change the vibe, Amano asks if she wants to play some coin games. Without hesitation, he puts 500 yen into the machine like a boss, surprising her. He ends up winning a bunch of coins, which only makes Tendu more competitive. Not wanting to be shown up, she challenges him. Let's see who ends up with the most coins in 30 minutes. Game on. They split up and start playing. When time's up, Tendu returns holding a full bag of coins, looking like a coin queen. Meanwhile, Amano shows up empty-handed, looking like someone begging for change on the street. Even though she wins, Tendu still feels weirdly unsatisfied. Just then, one of her coins falls, and Amano asks if he can use it to play a final game. Winner takes all, he says. Tendu blinks in surprise. Didn't you say you don't care about winning? Amano smiles. It's only fun if I give it my all. He plays, and loses. His smile fades, and disappointment washes over his face. Tendu looks at Amano, confused. She asks why he looked so down after losing when he once rejected her invite to the club, saying he didn't care about winning. She says, I thought you only played for fun. Why did losing even bother you? Amano shrugs and says, I like having fun, but winning matters too. Tendu blinks in disbelief. It sounds completely opposite to what he said before. Then Amano explains, if I didn't want to win, the game wouldn't be any fun. Winning makes it exciting. That catches Tendu off guard. Curious now, she asks, then why won't you join the game club if you enjoy winning so much? Amano replies honestly, because I don't have the guts to keep pushing to win. I'm not strong like you guys. Tendu hesitates, then asks, so, does that mean me and the others are silly for always going crazy over wins and losses? Amano quickly shakes his head. No way, that's what makes gaming awesome. Celebrating your wins and stressing over losses, that's where the real fun is. His words light up Tendu's face. Her doubts vanish, realizing Amano was never against the club. He just doubted himself. Standing up with a grin, she says, that's enough for today. I need to go home and play something right now. Meanwhile, back in time, just a little. Tasuku is walking with Chiaki down the road, still wondering where Amano disappeared off to with his girl. Suddenly, Chiaki says she wants to talk to him about something game development. Tasuku raises an eyebrow. Wait, are you actually making a game? Chiaki nods. He then suggests she talk to someone who's actually good at games like Amano, but Chiaki immediately snaps, I don't care about that clueless dummy. Just then, she gets a game notification and quickly grabs her phone to log in. Tasuku sees her username, Mono, and his brain starts connecting dots. He suddenly remembers Amano once mentioning that name. Curious, Tasuku checks her game profile, and then sees Mono's partner, a player named Sachi. That's Amano's in-game name. Right at that moment, Amano and Aguri walk past them looking like a couple, adding to the confusion. Tasuku turns to Chiaki, asking, wait, how long have you known Sachi? Chiaki says she's been playing with him from the start. It's kind of exciting talking to someone I've never met. She adds, repeating the exact thing Amano once said about her. Tasuku is stunned. This has to be fate. He then asks what she thinks of Amano. Chiaki glares and says, I hate him more than anything in this world. Meanwhile, none of them realize that Aguri is standing silently at the door, watching everything go down. She calls out Amano's name, and he immediately stands up and walks out with her. As soon as he's gone, Chiaki casually comments, "I didn't know Amano had such a cute girlfriend," mentioning that she'd seen them together once before. Tasuku and Tendu freeze. That one sentence hits hard and the two of them quickly run off, totally thrown off and feeling awful about what they just heard. Meanwhile, Amano and Aguri head to a nearby cafe, where things go south fast. Aguri suddenly breaks into tears, blaming Amano for filling her head with hope by saying Tasuku liked her. Amano, totally overwhelmed, tries to calm her down, but it quickly turns into a loud mess. A waiter comes over and politely asks them to quiet down. As the mood settles, Amano lets out a sigh and mumbles, "Man, I didn't know Tasuku was such a player." Then, looking at her seriously, he asks, "Do you still like him?" Aguri quietly nods and says yes. Amano, puzzled, asks, "Why don't you try to move on maybe with someone who suits you better?" Aguri shakes her head. "Love isn't something you plan for," she says. "You don't choose to fall, it just happens." Surprised by her words, Amano takes her hand and tells her he's going to help her get back together with Tasuku, no matter what. Suddenly, they notice Chiaki watching them from a distance, her eyes full of suspicion. Panicking, Amano rushes over and starts acting like a clown, doing wild hand gestures and pretending like everything's totally normal. Once he returns, he proudly tells Aguri, "Handled it. I just told her you're the most caring girlfriend in the universe, and no girl even comes close to being as pretty and sweet as you." Aguri's heart melts. She promises that she'll now do everything she can to be the best wingwoman for him with Tendu. Back at the arcade, Tasuku just can't stop thinking about Amano and Aguri. No matter how many excuses he tries to come up with, part of him can't shake the thought that something more might be going on between them. The next day, Amano meets up with Tasuku and asks him for advice on how to beat a dating sim he's been stuck on. Tasuku sighs and tells him to stop wasting time on fake love and try talking to real girls instead. Amano responds by saying he doesn't have the face stats required to talk to someone like Tendu, but Tasuku tells him he's already talking to her. They went to the arcade together, after all. Amano shrugs and says that doesn't count. Then he stares at Tasuku and asks if maybe he's pushing him toward Tendu just to get closer to her himself. Tasuku is taken aback, but responds sincerely he just wants Amano to be happy and get along with people. Hearing that, Amano suddenly grabs Tasuku's hand with excitement, moved by how much he actually cares. Just then, Chiaki walks in and her eyes widen, seeing Amano again. "I bet you guys," she is thinking, "he is not straight." Tasuku rushes after Chiaki, calling out to her. They end up meeting again at the cafe, and while sitting across from her, Tasuku can't help but feel weirded out. In his head, he's thinking, "How am I back here again, with Chiaki of all people?" As he's deep in thought, Chiaki suddenly says, "I still don't get how Amano ended up with such a cute girlfriend." Tasuku pretends to be just as surprised, nodding like it's news to him. But then, Chiaki continues, saying that Amano was literally bragging about how amazing his girlfriend is. That makes Tasuku sit up. "Wait, are you sure you weren't hearing it wrong?" Chiaki looks him dead in the eye. Nope, he was full-on praising her. Tasuku's smile fades for a second. Chiaki notices the shift in his expression and asks what's up, but he quickly changes the subject, saying, "Let's talk about something else." He tries bringing up Amano again, but Chiaki cuts him off, saying she hopes Amano becomes the next victim of truck kun. Tasuku sighs and smoothly changes the topic to Tendu instead. Coincidentally, Amano and Aguri sneak into the same cafe and sit quietly nearby, eavesdropping without being noticed. When asked about Tendu, Chiaki says, "She's on another level. Compared to her, I'm total trash. I wish we could be friends someday." Tasuku chuckles and says, "Then maybe you should just date Amano already." Chiaki gives him a sharp look, clearly confused. She turns the question back on him, asking what he thinks of Tendu. Tasuku replies, "She's absolutely flawless." That stuns Chiaki. Her brain immediately assumes Tasuku has feelings for Tendu. But before she can say anything, he smiles and adds, "But still, if I had to choose, I'd go with you, Chiaki. You're perfect just the way you are." Chiaki's entire face goes red. Embarrassed and confused, she suddenly gets up and dashes out of the cafe. Tasuku jumps to his feet and runs after her. Back at the table, Amano and Aguri are frozen. They both just witnessed a scene that looks exactly like a secret confession. Aguri slumps in her seat like she just survived a horror movie and whispers, "I still love Tasuku." Amano, concerned, asks, "So what are you going to do now?" But Aguri turns the question back on him, asking how things are going with Tendu. Amano sighs, saying he still sees himself as a worthless background character who doesn't even deserve to be her friend. Aguri firmly tells him that if he wants something to happen, he has to tell Tendu directly. That leads Amano to ask, "How did you confess to Tasuku?" Aguri blushes and proudly says, "I walked right up to him and asked if he wanted to go out." She smiles and gives him one last piece of advice. "If you really want to be close to Tendu, don't hold back." Hearing that, Amano makes up his mind. Tomorrow, he's going to talk to Tendu no matter what happens. The next day at school, Tendu turns down another random guy's confession coldly. Misumi watches this and later approaches her, asking why she's always so harsh. Tendu says she just doesn't want to give anyone the wrong idea. It's better to say no straight than give false hope. Misumi nods but tells her she's been acting a bit too closed off lately. "The Tendu I know reacts with more heart," he says. Tendu quietly takes that in and decides maybe she needs to open up a little more. That night, Amano is struggling again with a dating sim. He keeps failing, and starts thinking it must be a sign that he and Tendu just aren't compatible. Then his phone buzzes. Messages from Tasuku and Aguri pop up, cheering him on for the next day. Their encouragement makes him smile. He goes back to the game with a new mindset, tries a different approach, and this time, he wins. Overjoyed, Amano thanks his friends in his heart. That small victory gives him the confidence boost he needed. Now, he's finally ready to talk to Tendu like a real man. The next day, Amano realizes that Tasuku has somehow spilled the beans to everyone about his plan to talk to Tendu. He's a little annoyed, he didn't want the whole school involved. But Tasuku casually tells him, "I did it for your own good, man. Once people see you and Tendu together, they'll start respecting you. You'll level up socially, big time." Amano blinks, then smiles and apologizes for being short-sighted earlier. Meanwhile, back in class, things are going wild. Everyone involved in this emotional roller coaster starts overanalyzing Amano's upcoming confession. Aguri's freaking out so hard she looks like she's about to explode. She's overthinking everything and nearly loses her mind in her seat. Chiaki, on the other hand, is confused. Why would Amano want to meet up with Tendu if he's dating Aguri? She wonders. Then she remembers the rumors about Aguri and Tasuku possibly being a thing. That makes her jump to the conclusion that maybe Aguri's just using Amano and he's the only one who doesn't see it. Elsewhere, Tasuku's hidden motive starts to surface. He admits to himself that this whole setup was also a way to test Aguri. If she's chill about Amano getting close to Tendu, then maybe she's innocent. But if she starts acting jealous, that's a red flag, he thinks. Aguri, not one to be left behind, has her own plan. She decides to study Tasuku's expression carefully. If he shows any annoyance about her and Amano, then maybe he is the one being shady. Chiaki, meanwhile, is now on a mission of her own. She wants to uncover the real story behind all these complicated relationships. While all that chaos brews, Tendu is in full panic mode. She's overthinking why Amano would want to meet her after school. Is he trying to cut off our friendship? She wonders. Still, she decides to stay composed and remember Misumi's advice: keep your cool, and don't lose your dignity no matter what happened. Once the final bell rings, everyone sprints to the spot like it's a sports anime climax. Tendu, trying to stay calm, repeats Misumi's advice in her head while walking toward Class 2F. When she gets there, she calls out to Amano only to find a crowd of students already gathered, waiting to see the drama unfold. She asks why he called her there. Amano, suddenly nervous, starts overthinking. She's definitely about to reject me. He panics. At the same time, Tasuku and Aguri are busy watching each other's faces like it's a staring contest. One catches a hint of annoyance from the other and immediately assumes they're being cheated on. Then it happens. Amano blurts out, "Do you want to go out with me?" Tendu, not even processing what he said properly, answers, "Yes." The entire classroom falls silent. And then boom, shockwaves go through the crowd. The guy nobody expected to make a move just scored a yes from the class queen. Afterward, everyone keeps staring at Amano like he accidentally won an award meant for someone else. Tasuku points this out, laughing that Amano is now the center of attention. Amano blames him, saying this is all his fault. Tasuku grins and says, "Hey, no one thought you'd jump straight from friendship to dating that fast." Then Tasuku admits he has no idea how to face Aguri now. The guy she likes is currently hanging out with Tendu, he mutters. Amano misreads that completely and starts thinking, Wait, if she likes me and I'm with Tendu, then am I actually the one cheating? Later, Amano wonders if he should cancel the whole thing and tell Tendu it was all a mistake. The attention is too much and everything feels off. As he's heading out, he sees Tendo, but before she can say anything, he awkwardly ducks away and disappears down the hall. As he walks, feeling like the whole world is watching him, he sees Chiaki waving him over from a distance. Curious and nervous, he walks up to her. Chiaki smirks and says, "Nice move yesterday. You finally dumped a Guri. I'm proud of you." Amano is confused. Wait, what? He later runs into a Guri who gives him a look that could turn him to stone. Sensing danger, he quickly says sorry for everything. She laughs and says she's joking. But Amano isn't convinced. He looks at her and says, "You can't act like a cow on steroids after you've basically confirmed your boyfriend's cheating." Aguri scoffs and says, "Okay then, explain why Tasuku panicked when I looked at him if he wasn't hiding something." Amano stares at her, stuck between logic and fear. He finally says, "You can't just assume things based on one guilty-looking face." Aguri narrows her eyes, then explain why that face looked guilty in the first place. Aguri suddenly turns to Amano and says it's all his fault that ever since she started talking to him, her entire life turned into a disaster. Hearing that, Amano starts to wonder if he really is the problem. Maybe everyone around him ends up worse. She then asks what he truly wants to happen with Tendu. Amano hesitates, but eventually admits he's thinking about ending whatever's going on between them. Aguri tells him Straith shouldn't let anyone else decide something that important. "Do what you want," she says, "not what others expect." The next day, Tendu stands nervously on the school rooftop, waiting for Amano to show up. Her heart's racing as she tries to guess why he asked to meet her. When Amano arrives, he immediately asks, "Do you really hate me?" Tendu freezes, cheeks burning. She assumes he wants to take back his confession. Holding back tears, she says, "If that's what you want, then it's okay. I got carried away yesterday. I shouldn't have said yes." But Amano shocks her by smiling and saying, "I'm just glad you don't hate me." Then, out of nowhere, he asks her out on a proper date. Tendu flips into karate stance, unsure if he meant to say that. Was that a mistake? Amano calmly says, "Nope, I meant it. We're dating now, right?" Tendu turns bright red and mumbles yes, before running off in a panic. On the day of the date, they meet up at the arcade. After some wild gaming, Tendu asks what's next. Amano pulls out a map of the arcade floors and quickly covers the pool section before she notices. But of course, she catches it and points to the pool. She teases, "Let's go there." Amano nearly chokes, turning pink. He says he doesn't think he's worthy of seeing her in a swimsuit. Tendo blackmails him playfully, saying, "You just don't want to see me looking hot in a bikini." At the poolside, Tendu walks out in her swimsuit, looking stunning. Amano's brain crashes for a second. He says, "Thanks for showing me this," but she frowns and says, "You're supposed to compliment me, idiot." Nearby, a couple is splashing each other in the pool. Tendu grins and suggests, "Let's copy them. Whoever gets the other person wet first wins." They start the splash war, and of course, Tendu wins instantly, soaking Amano. But when they look back, they notice the original couple getting a little too close. Tendu immediately says, "Okay, this is where we exit." Just as they leave the pool, they spot Chiaki being chased by two guys who clearly aren't her type. She runs over, grabs Amano's arm tightly, and hides behind him. The guys see her holding onto a guy and quickly back off. But Tendu's eyes narrow. She can't help but notice how tightly Chiaki is pressed up against Amano, especially how her chest is squished against his arm. Amano awkwardly says, Chiaki, I'm kind of on a date right now, with Tendu." Chiaki casually replies, "Yeah, I know." Amano frowns. "Then why are you still holding me like that?" Chiaki shrugs. "Your relationship with Tendu is fake anyway." Amano is shocked. "What are you even talking about?" He then asks, "Why are you here, though?" Chiaki says her sister invited her to the arcade, but they got separated, and now she's worried. Tendu offers to help find her sister, but when Amano says he'll help too, Tendu quickly cuts in and tells him, "No, you go wait on the ground floor. I'll handle it." Amano watches as Tendu heads off to search, leaving him behind. Still feeling awkward about the pool scene, Amano walks down to the ground floor to wait for her. Amano quickly walks off like an obedient little soldier after Tendu tells him to wait downstairs. Chiaki watches this and raises an eyebrow, thinking, so this is what dating looks like. A bit later, both Tendu and Chiaki return together, and Amano is stunned to see them side by side. He asks why Chiaki's still tagging along. Chiaki explains her sister had already gone home, so she figured she'd just hang around. Then, with a grin, she says, "Maybe I can help you make Tendu even happier." But Amano instantly realizes this is just her sneaky way of staying close. Later on, while they're all playing a racing game, Amano grabs a bomb roulette power-up, which he's supposed to use strategically to blast his rivals. Instead, he fires it randomly just for laughs, ignoring the competitive edge. On the way home, he starts overthinking, wondering if Tendu now sees him as a joke. But Tendu laughs and says, "That's exactly what I love about you, you're just yourself, and it's fun." They both share a soft, slightly awkward moment where feelings are clear without needing to be spelled out. Amano starts to feel like maybe being him isn't such a bad thing after all. At another school, a girl named Konoha meets up with her fellow student council members and immediately gets weird about the fact that they're all adorable girls. In her mind, she wouldn't mind being very friendly with them. Trying to avoid suspicion, she disguises herself as an old man and heads over to a local game store to check out some games that are far from family-friendly. While browsing the shelves, she suddenly spots two guys walking in Amano and Misumi. Konoha panics and quickly hides behind a shelf. The moment she notices their uniforms, it clicks they're from the same school as Tendu. She instantly starts fangirling over Misumi, calling him cute in her head, while thinking Amano looks like one of those background characters no one dates in a romance sim. As she spies on them, Misumi asks Amano if he could recommend a good game. Amano freezes, surprised no one's ever asked for his opinion like that before. Unsure how to respond, he nervously asks what kind of game Misumi likes. Misumi pulls out a title he found, and Amano lights up, saying that particular game had him hooked for a week straight, couldn't even sleep until he beat it. Hearing that, Konoha, still hiding, makes a disgusted face. She silently judges his taste and is about to leave, but then something he says catches her attention. Amano suddenly tells Misumi that even though that game is great, he wouldn't actually recommend it to him. Misumi, curious, asks why. Amano then leans in and says, "Do you really want to learn what makes a dating sim good?" Misumi nods, explaining that no one in the game club actually knows what makes dating sims tick. Amano goes to pick a different game, and when Konoha hears the title, she's stunned. It's an old, obscure game that even she wouldn't have expected him to bring up. But then Amano explains his reason. He says it may be outdated, but it's the only game that actually made him feel something genuine while playing. Konoha, completely caught off guard, ends up buying the same game. Later at home, she lies on the couch holding the game, replaying everything that happened in her head. She's embarrassed by how invested she got and makes up a lie when her sister Chiaki walks in. "A friend lent it to me," she says quickly. Chiaki doesn't buy it. She points right at the price sticker still on the case and says, "You bought it. Stop the cap." Meanwhile, Tasuku has another one of his bright ideas. A few days back, Chiaki had shown him and Amano a romantic board game she discovered and suggested they all try playing it at her place. Tasuku, being Tasuku, thought it'd be more fun and maybe helpful if they invited Aguri and Tendu too. He figured this would be the perfect setup to finally clear the air between everyone and settle all the weird tension going on. But once they all gathered, it didn't go how he planned. Instead of being chill and casual, everyone became overly cautious and quiet. The tension was so thick, you could cut it with a plastic fork. As they played the romance board game, the scenarios they landed on were almost too accurate. Each situation on the board weirdly mirrored the drama happening in real life. By the end of it, Tasuku sat there in silence, staring at the board, feeling like his brain was about to melt. Just then, a loud thud from the door makes Tasuku jump, but Chiaki casually says it's just her sister. Meanwhile, Groki gets so spooked he thinks she's about to stab him or something. A few moments later, Chiaki excuses herself to take care of something. During the break, Amano casually mentions he might be interested in Chiaki's sister, but it comes out wrong, and everyone starts assuming weird thing. Trying to change the subject, Amano gets a phone notification and jumps right into playing his usual mobile game. Tendu walks over, curious about what he's doing. Seeing this, Aguri nudges Tasuku and says she's glad things seem to be clicking between those two. Tasuku gets suspicious and holds Aguri's hand, asking what's really going on between her and Amano, since they've been unusually close lately. Aguri explains that she just sees Amano as a brother. He's a bit annoying, sure, but she's honestly happy for him now that he has a girlfriend. This shocks Tasuku, so he squeezes her hand, reminding her that she's still his girl, no matter what. Right then, Amano blurts out that the game isn't fun without Mono, Tendu asks who that is, and he starts gushing excitedly. Just then, Chiaki walks back in, and Tasuku can already feel the tension building. Chiaki overhears Amano talking about his online name, Sachi, and how Mano and Novi mean a lot to him. This hits her hard. She flashes back to the early days when she first started making games. It was just for fun at first, creating simple games and enjoying the connection between developer and player. But as she got more recognition as Novi, the fun faded and it became more like a job. The one thing that kept her going was the support from someone who genuinely appreciated her work. Suddenly, snapping back, Chiaki realizes everyone's gone, except her sister in the room. Confused, she remembers what Amano had just said, but she's still not ready to forgive him. She slumps to the floor, totally embarrassed, and finds it harder than ever to message Mano again as Novi. Later, she heads out to tell Konoha she's going to the store, but finds her sister panting like she just got done using a certain personal item. Konoha claims she's just working out. As Chiaki leaves, Konoha asks to borrow her laptop since her own can't handle the videos she likes. Chiaki gets curious about what her sister's watching, but Konoha quickly rushes her out before she can ask more. At the store, Chiaki notices Amano staring at her and accuses him of being a stalker. Amano insists he only came to get his transit pass, which he forgot, and saw her by chance. She says she might call the cops, but realizes her phone is dead. Amano is shocked. A Gen Z like her would walk around with a dead phone. Chiaki explains that guys always hit on her in the summer, so she doesn't really use it. Amano doesn't buy it and calls her out. Chiaki gets annoyed and demands to know what he even knows about her. He calmly says he knows her body, which totally stuns her. He adds that her pale skin clearly shows she doesn't go outside much. When she asks how he'd know that, he grins and says his skin looks exactly the same. While walking to her place, Chiaki curiously asks Amano why he's even so into this topic, when all he ever does is play games through summer. He casually says he just feels like this summer might turn out different from the usual. Chiaki instantly assumes it must be something romantic with Tendu, but Amano quickly clears the air, saying there's no official date or anything going on between them. They keep chatting like usual until they reach Chiaki's house. Amano only plans to grab his card wallet and head out. But when Chiaki spots it first, she sneakily hides it so he'll have to stick around for a while. As Amano waits in the living room, his eyes drift to the window where he spots Chiaki's cheek curtains drying on a clothesline, which instantly flusters her. She calls him a creep and tells him not to stare, but then, weirdly, says he can stare as much as he likes, leaving Amano completely stunned. Chiaki then heads to her room to plug in her dead phone, still hiding his card wallet, and starts smiling over a message she got from Sachi. Suddenly, Amano shows up to let her know it started raining and maybe she should grab the clothes. But Chiaki panics and slips while trying to hide her phone and computer screen, tossing her phone away in the chaos. Amano picks it up to return it, and while she begs him not to peek at her screen, it's already too late. He glances at her monitor and sees the Nobi game developer website. Then, looking at her phone, he notices the name Mano in the messages. Confused and a little shook, Amano starts putting two and two together. Just when Chiaki is about to explain who Mano and Nobi actually are, Konoha randomly pops out from under the blanket, and Chiaki claims she's the one behind the usernames. Amano's completely thrown off. The next day, Amano meets with Tasuku and spills everything. Tasuku, who already knows the truth, plays it cool, but Amano finds the whole thing off, especially how Konoha acted clueless the day before. Her sudden intro felt so forced, like she was pretending too hard. Amano finally says he's glad Mano and Nobi are actually the same person, but man, he never saw this twist coming. Meanwhile, Tasuku just sits there in silence, thinking that no matter what he does, Chiaki has chosen her path and it doesn't include his help anymore. He mutters that he doesn't think he can genuinely feel happy if Amano and Tendu actually work out. Amano is stunned hearing this. But before he can say anything, Tasuku bolts off, clearly realizing he slipped up. On his way home, Amano thinks hard about what Tasuku said. Does that mean Tasuku has a thing for Tendu, or is he trying to help someone else who likes him? Still confused, Amano decides to stop by the game shop to buy an adult game. But as he gets to the register, he's caught off guard when he sees Konoha there, paying for the exact same game. Konoha instantly feels awkward and wishes she had put on one of her disguises today. Meanwhile, Amano can't help but wonder if this is what Mano and Novi are really like in person. As they leave the store, Konoha quickly tells him to keep everything he saw a secret, but it doesn't seem like he fully gets it. Then, out of nowhere, she asks what he thinks about her sister. Amano says, there's not much to say, he's just still shocked that Chiaki is actually the one behind the names Mano and Novi. When Konoha asks how he feels about Mano and Novi themselves, he starts talking with full excitement, praising their work and saying how much he loves the games. Even though she's not really Novi, her heart skips for a moment, then she punches him out of nowhere. Why? No one knows. Soon after, Chiaki walks up and gets suspicious seeing the two together. Amano nearly spills everything, but before he can open his big mouth, Konoha stomps on his foot to shut him up. She quickly lies, saying they just met to talk about some project stuff. Chiaki finds it weird but doesn't push it. Suddenly, Chiaki gets a phone call. As soon as she hears the voice, she shouts loud enough to startle both of them. Turns out, Tasuku just told her straight up that he chose her, then hung up right after. Amano sits there thinking, wait, was that a confession? Later, he tries to hype Chiaki up, saying she should be happy since her crush basically just confessed. But Konoha interrupts, saying she would have shut Tasuku down instantly after all. The dude already has a girlfriend. That makes Amano panic. If Chiaki and Tasuku start dating, what is he even supposed to say to Aguri? Trying to find a way out of this drama, Konoha suggests calling Tasuku back and giving him a proper rejection, but Chiaki is too nervous to do it. That's when Amano gets a bright idea. Why not ask someone who's a total pro at rejecting people? He calls Tendu to ask for help. She immediately thinks he's asking for his own use. When he says yes, she assumes he's planning to dump her and gets flustered. She hangs up after telling him to figure it out on his own, but not before throwing in an "I love you." That leaves Amano totally stunned, sitting on a bench with hard eyes. Konoha and Chiaki stare at him, waiting for an update, but he just gushes about how adorable Tendu is. Konoha, now annoyed, slaps him like my girlfriend. Amano then turns to Konoha and asks how she'd handle the situation if it were her. She blurts out a totally useless answer that doesn't help at all. So Amano suggests the only way to fix things is by bringing Aguri and Tendu into the meetup to clear things up. Later, he goes to Aguri and invites her to join, but she says it'd be awkward since she isn't into games like the rest of them. Amano says playing isn't the point, just having a love for gaming is enough. Aguri replies that she has absolutely zero love for games. He doubles down, saying it's fine as long as she loves someone who loves games. That weird logic shocks her, but she admits that being in the group with Tasuku sounds fun. Still, she doesn't want to be a burden. Amano keeps pushing, and says he even invited Tendu too. But Aguri shrugs that off since Tendu's already a gamer. Then, as a bribe, he offers her his creamy snack if she agrees to join, and she instantly says yes. While she munches on his cake, Amano quietly feels bad for her, knowing Tasuku confessed to someone else. The next day, after school, Amano gathers everyone for the meetup, but instead of bringing up the main topic, he randomly announces that he's going to sprint to buy a new game dropping the next day. Chiaki is totally disappointed, but he just couldn't bring himself to talk about the real issue. As he raves about the game, Tendu comments that she's played a previous version and wonders if it's really worth the hype. Amano says it wasn't his first game, but it was the first one that truly touched his heart, which stuns Chiaki. That night, Chiaki searches for the earlier version of the game and lies on her bed smiling, like she's finally escaped something messy. Konoha walks in and asks if the meeting solved anything. Chiaki says no, it was a mess because Amano completely chickened out. Konoha sighs, saying she saw it coming, then bluntly tells Chiaki that she's part of the problem. She warns her to figure out what she wants with Amano because her position as Nobi and Mano is about to get shaky. Chiaki agrees, and Konoha asks straight up, does she want to get closer to him or keep fighting forever? Chiaki stays quiet, so Konoha tells her to think hard on it. The next day, after school, Amano heads out for his game run, and Tasuku visits Chiaki since no one else is around. As soon as she sees him, she starts freaking out. She tells him she doesn't have an answer, yet she's not ready to break anyone's heart. But Tasuku misunderstands and thinks she means she doesn't want to hurt Tendu by taking Amano from her. Right then, Tendu walks in and says she needs help with something. Meanwhile, across the street, Aguri bumps into her old schoolmates, who start mocking her in the meetup group. She gets angry and storms off, but one of them follows, saying she shouldn't be mad since her boyfriend wasn't even part of what they were insulting. Amano then appears, but coldly ignores her, which annoys her even more. As she walks away, she tries calling Tasuku for comfort, but he doesn't answer. He's still with Chiaki and Tendu. He asks Tendu what she needs help with, and she awkwardly admits that since she started dating Amano, she's been feeling more flirty and clingy than usual. She always wants to be around him. But Tendu starts venting, saying that Amano seems to care more about games than Harry even ditched earlier just to chase a game release. She also complains that he always hangs out and eats with Aguri. Tasuku reassures her that there's nothing to worry about. Aguri told him herself that Amano is like the brother she never had. That finally puts Tendu at ease. Chiaki then jumps in and warns her that Amano's love for games runs deep. Sometimes he even chooses gaming over his own happiness. So, if Tendu really likes him, she has to accept him as he is. Tasuku sees how much Tendu cares about Amano and decides to step in when she can't stop gushing about him. He grabs both her and Chiaki to tell them to chill, but unlucky timing. Aguri walks in and sees them mid-moment. Furious, she storms off. Tasuku rushes after her, and the other two follow quickly behind. While running away, Aguri calls Amano for backup, but once everything's explained to her, she finally calms down. She mentions she had already called Amano before, and just as they think he won't show up, being busy with the game launch, suddenly arrives, panting heavily. Seeing everyone together, he gets confused and says he thought Aguri broke up with Tasuku and needed comforting. But when they clear up that it was all a misunderstanding, he regrets even coming, saying it wasn't that serious. The group asks why he came anyway if he had a game to buy. Amano says he paused the game run because this situation felt more important, shocking everyone. Then he and Aguri start bickering like a couple, which makes Tasuku feel like the third wheel in his own relationship. Feeling off about the whole thing, Tasuku walks off and finds Tendu also in a slump. As he tries to pass by her, she stops him and they start chatting. She tells him that Amano seems more cheerful when Aguri's around, and she thinks maybe that's because of Aguri's influence. Tasuku agrees, saying even Aguri seems more mature lately. Tendu wonders if that change is Amano's doing. The two then realize Amano and Aguri are helping each other grow, and that kind of bond is what makes a perfect couple. This thought makes them both feel even worse. While they keep walking, they agree that Amano and Aguri aren't the type to ever cheat, especially not on each other. Still, Tendu admits that sometimes she feels like what Amano shares with Aguri goes deeper than what he shares with her. Hearing that, Tasuku says they can't just sit and watch, it's time to take action. Tendu looks at him confused, asking what he means. He explains that the only way to show their relationship is real is by creating undeniable proof, something only the two of them could share. Like being alone together and showing how close they really are. Just the thought of that leaves Tendu blushing hard. Tasuku catches himself, realizing he's crossing a line by getting this close with Chiaki's rival. Meanwhile, someone is secretly spying on them. Later that night, Tendu gives Amano a surprise call to tell him about a planned double date with her and Aguri. Amano's totally confused at first, wondering what's going on, but even though he finds it kinda awkward, he agrees to go along with it. On the actual day of the date, both Tendu and Amano are ridiculously hyped and start jumping around like two kids on sugar, leaving Tasuku and Aguri cringing at their over-the-top energy. They're both wondering what's so exciting about this mess of a situation. Soon after, Aguri ends up with Amano while Tendu runs ahead with Tasuku. But both Aguri and Amano are suspicious, thinking maybe those two are just trying to hide the fact that they're cheating or something shady is going on. While waiting for the next part of their little date adventure, Tasuku and Tendu give each other the look to make a move on their partners, but right before they can, they're caught off guard by the sudden arrival of Chiaki and Konoha. Turns out, the day before, Konoha had invited Chiaki out to hang, but Chiaki said she already had weekend plans. Konoha teased her, saying she should just treat it like a date with Amano. That embarrassed Chiaki, who said she wasn't ready for a date with him, especially since he's already with Tendu. But Konoha pushed her to be real about her feelings. Chiaki didn't respond quickly, so Konoha joked that she might as well just invite Amano herself if Chiaki didn't want to. That made Chiaki shout that she'd go instead. Konoha had only brought this up because she'd secretly seen Tasuku and Tendu plotting a date, and there was no way she'd let them sneak off and leave her sister out of the picture. Back in the present, Amano awkwardly suggests that since they're all here now, they should just hang out together. They go on a roller coaster first, and then head to a haunted house attraction. Amano gets super hyped for it, thinking this might finally give him the thrill he doesn't get from dating. Tendu notices how excited he is and thinks this might be her chance to get closer to him. As soon as they step into the spooky dungeon, Aguri is the first one to freak out and immediately clings to Tasuku. At the same time, Tendu triggers a trap and freaks out too, which grabs Amano's attention, something that makes Konoha a little jealous for her sister. Tasuku and Aguri continue moving forward, with Tasuku still trying to act cool while holding Aguri's hand. Meanwhile, Tendu turns to talk to Amano, only to realize he and Chiaki are missing. Apparently, Konoha had quietly pushed them through the give-up exit. Now outside, Amano asks her what the heck she's up to, but then notices how quiet Chiaki has gotten. He checks on her and she suddenly faints on him. When she wakes up, he gently asks if she's okay, saying she looks like she's seriously low on energy. Konoha quickly heads off to grab drinks, giving them space to talk. Just as Chiaki finally tries to say something, Amano gets a call from Tendu. He starts to excuse himself to answer it, but Chiaki asks him not to leave her alone, so he stays, saying he'll call Tendu back later. Amano looks at Chiaki and asks what she's doing there, which instantly makes her flustered. She awkwardly admits that Konoha dragged her along, calling it a date. Hearing that, Amano raises an eyebrow and asks who the date's with, which only embarrasses her more. She quickly snaps that it's none of his business. After a short, awkward silence, Chiaki suddenly switches the topic and asks what Amano thinks of Novi and Mono. He says they really mean a lot to him even if he hasn't totally accepted that Konoha is behind both. Then she throws a curveball, asking if they're more important to him than Tendu. That question stuns him. Confused, he asks why she even brought that up, but Chiaki doesn't answer. Amano then explains that Tendu means a lot to him. He still can't believe he's lucky enough to be dating her. But he adds that Chiaki, Aguri, and Tasuku also matter deeply to him, since he never expected to have such close friends in his life. He used to be a total loner with no social skills, but everything started changing the moment Tendu approached him. Still, he admits that it kind of hurts, not knowing how Tendu truly sees him, which makes Chiaki silently jealous. Just then, Konoha shows up but without the drinks and casually throws an insult his way. After that, Amano says they should head back to the others, but Chiaki says she'd rather go home and tells him to enjoy the rest of the date with Tendu. But Amano doesn't believe her for a second. He grabs her by the hand and drags her along with him, refusing to let her just walk away. They head back to the rest of the group and catch the parade together. Tasuku finally gathers the courage to hold Aguri's hand, and Amano holds Tendu's hand too, while Chiaki ends up laughing along with Konoha. A few days later, the gamers group heads out for a fun trip. Once they arrive at the resort, Tendu brings up how he heard Amano recently bought some trash game. Amano admits it, saying he thought he'd scored something amazing until he realized it was just a super cheap Fortnite knockoff. Worse, it's non-refundable, so he basically just tossed a bunch of cash in the bin. Aguri jumps in, saying games are overpriced in general. Tasuku tries to defend them, saying, sure, games can seem expensive at first, but when you compare it to clothing prices, they're actually not that bad. Aguri claps back, arguing that clothes at least have real-world use since you wear them every day, unlike games, which are just for fun and don't serve any real purpose. This sparks a mini-war as the gamers in the group get defensive about their passion, but Aguri keeps coming at them with strong takes. She even slams the whole concept of DLCs, saying it's crazy how broke guys blow actual money on game upgrades instead of buying clothes for themselves. Amano tries hard to defend gaming, tossing out different examples to make her understand the joy and value behind it, but Aguri's not buying any of it. To her, games are still just a waste of money, leaving the group totally speechless. Chiaki and Tendu even try convincing Aguri during a sauna showdown, but her brain just refuses to absorb anything, no matter how solid their arguments are. Later that night, even after all the efforts, no one's been able to change Aguri's mind. She doubles down, saying games are just crazy expensive. Amano admits her words sting for someone who's into gaming. He then explains that yeah, gaming can be a fun hobby, but it's also one where you might end up wasting money sometimes. Aguri then bluntly asks if gamers actually enjoy throwing away cash like that. In response, Amano shares a story from his childhood. His parents once accidentally bought him a bootleg version of a game, which oddly cost even more than the original. He didn't want to make them feel bad, so he just played it anyway. To his surprise, he actually ended up liking it and played it for 3 years 7, though he kept whining about it. Aguri argues that this kind of memory could have come from anything, not just a game. But Amano says the reason it stuck with him was because it was a game. Games give people the space to pour in their emotions, however they like. He concludes that even if gamers sometimes make bad buys, they still try to enjoy those games in their own way. Tasuku then adds that even trash-talking terrible games with others is its own kind of fun. Everyone else chips in with their own gaming experiences, surprising Aguri, who finally starts to see gaming in a new light. Just then, Amano lights up and suggests they all try playing that horrible game he recently bought. But instead, everyone straight up ditches him and heads to bed, leaving him sitting there wondering what all his passionate speech was even for. And that's it for today's video, guys. Watch the following video and I will see you in the next one.